Good evening, and once again, welcome to Conversations with Ed. Sorry for the delay. We had a little technical issue here because, as you know, last week we decided we wanted to broadcast on Facebook, so it takes a little bit of time to set it up. But these guys are great in here. How's everybody doing out there? You know what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be calling your friends and telling them, hey, Conversations with Ed is on, and especially now that we're broadcasting it live on Facebook. Those of you who want to check that out, just go to my page, Edward Coleman, on Facebook, Edward Eddie Coleman. Got some interesting things to talk about tonight, some conversation that needs to be had with all of the issues that are going on here in Richmond with the shooting and the crime and the ridiculous way these young people are acting. So I have somebody on special tonight that kind of might have some information that would get you guys to get into some books instead of getting your butts in jail. Very important right now, okay? That's one of the things. And then, got to talk about my vets. Listen, guys, I don't know if you've been seeing all the advertisements or anything, but those of you who want to get homes, you can get homes now. No down payment, no closing costs, anything. They'll put you right in there. VA loans, get a house, low interest. If you're already in a house, get your house refinanced and get your interest down that way. Take advantage of the medical circumstances, whether you're a combat vet or not. The veterans are eligible for health resources just by having been in the service over 90 days. So take advantage, guys. Come on, don't let all of this stuff go to waste. Plus, we don't know what's going to be happening in the next couple of years with the situation there in the big White House. So we want to do what we can now, okay? With all of that being said, I'm going to introduce my guest. We're going to let you guys put the phone number up right away because I know there will be some calls. And hello to everybody out there in Facebook world, in Comcast world, in Fios world. Let's talk. Get your pens and pads out so you can write your questions down. So what we want to do, guys, if you can hear me, I'd like to introduce my guest now. There he is. Hey, see that? Modern technology.
Here I am.
I have this young man right here. I've known him for quite a few years. In fact, I think when you started your new office there.
I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure I've been there 8 years now.
Now, yeah, so I've known you a little longer than that, but
right.
When I remember coming in when you had just got the brand new office set up, beautiful office.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it didn't look like an office for criminal law.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what it
it
is.
looked like corporate, like you had a corporate business going on in there. But that's a good thing. All right. His name is Vaughn Jones, Esquire. He's an attorney here in Richmond. He's a criminal lawyer, and Richmond is going a little bit crazy now. Yeah, I think you would agree, Ron.
Well, there are a lot of things going on now. Now, I've been practicing criminal law for 21 years, so I've seen the criminal aspects of Richmond ebb and flow. I remember the crack days when I was a prosecutor, to where you would rarely see the opiates and the heroin. That was a rare thing. Mm-hmm. To where, largely because of some of the things that the Democratic presidencies did, some of those things died down, and then some new things have awoken. Now it's kind of going full, 180 degrees, to where now you see quite a bit of the opiates and the heroins, things you hadn't seen since the 70s.
And who thought we would see them again? It's just crazy.
It's amazing. I remember a time when I was the prosecutor where you would see marijuana, which has remained relatively consistent. You'd see a lot of a lot of cocaine arrests back then, crack cocaine and powder cocaine back then. But heroin was a rare thing. You just didn't see it. You thought that was the kind of thing that you saw in some of the northern cities, and it died off down here in the South. But it's come back, and it's come back with a vengeance, and it's killing people.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the medical field, because the doctors themselves, and in fact it's on the news now, the doctors didn't realize the dangers of the opiates because the people that made the opiates never told.
Well, I'm reluctant to say what came first, the chicken or the egg, or what caused it, but I can absolutely say that within the last 5 to 10 years, we've started seeing a lot more criminal prosecutions of doctors either stealing opioids themselves, stealing, and some of the ones I've seen, you start to wonder, why would someone put their medical license on the line over some sold drugs? But I've seen it. And
the power of the drug.
Power of the drugs, power of money.
Yeah,
power
that
of money.
too. Yeah, the power of money.
Those things exist now. And I cannot say that they did 15 years ago. I can't say that those things were prevalent then.
Well, they were around.
Well, I'm not saying they didn't occur. I'm saying they weren't prosecuted.
The opiates thing, I mean, this is really brand new for them to be this intense with so many people strung out. I mean, there's whole communities that are strung out on these pills. And I mean, I'm a wounded warrior. So they started giving me Percocet back in the 60s. They would give me 180 a month. Wow. Right? And I was supposed to take 6 a day. I study martial arts, right? You can't do that. So I used to take 1 in the morning and 1 at night and just deal with the pain that might have come by me not taking more.
Right, and I'm not suggesting that opium's new. I mean, opium was huge. It was huge. Yeah, it's been huge for 50, 60 years as an illegal drug in heroin.
Centuries.
Absolutely. And it's just that it seemed that it had waned. It seemed that this is not something that was the commonplace drug for a long period of time.
Well, again, this thing has turned into an epidemic, and I think it's responsible for a lot of what we see going on now in Richmond and in other cities. I mean, Chicago, they say, has gone crazy, and most of the major cities have some kind of problem. But I don't think these young people, I think they're caught up in a trend, so to speak. I don't know if they themselves are opiate heads or it's a gang thing or whatever it is, but all of this, last night I'm talking to my sensei on the phone. He lives over off of Laburnum over by Mechanicsville Road. Anyhow, while I'm talking to him, he said, somebody's getting killed. I said, why are you saying that? He said, I heard gunshots going, and then I see it's on the news this morning.
Yes. And it's tough to say because, and again, I'm very reluctant to say what the causality is and which causes or precedes the other. Mm. But I can say this. When marijuana was by far the most prevalent drugs, I'd say in the last 10 years, there wasn't as much violence associated with it.
There is no violence associated with it.
And I don't mean the people using it. I mean, even associated with the sale of it, even associated with the business of it. You don't see people killing each other frequently over marijuana deals going bad.
Yeah, everybody just
cocaine, absolutely. Right, cocaine you do it, and the opioids you do. And it's just a different thing. Yeah. It's just a different thing.
Well, back in the 60s when the epidemic went through, I had come out of the military in 63. I had a friend, actually one of my best friends, went through basic training and jump school shooting heroin.
Wow.
Okay. He's dead now. Okay. It's a circle. I mean, you can't live that life.
Well, that's another thing that has always mystified me about the opioids and heroin. There's no 10-year success plan.
No.
You don't continue to use opium as a party drug for 10 years. And I'm not saying, marijuana you can't theoretically, cocaine you possibly can. And I'm not advocating their use, but the opium will kill you.
Oh, without a doubt.
At 10 years in, you're not going to be here.
Yeah, and it's just amazing to me that with the history that the parents of these youngsters have, they know all about this.
The only thing I can guess is maybe they didn't see it. Maybe this generation now didn't see their parents 20 years ago or 30 years ago when they were in the thralls of it. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's just a guess, but, I don't know. Maybe that there's just not as many of the horror stories within their realm of experience to say this is what this stuff does to you.
Well, you know something? I think we should talk about the consequences now, because, it's one thing to see the movies and you know, you see the gangbangers and all of that kind of stuff. But when you get down to real life, there's a whole different scenario. Now I was a volunteer down at Richmond Sheriff with the jail for about 7 years, and we had a drug program in the jail. In fact, there were two, and the one I was affiliated with was called the Belief Program. And if you joined the Belief Program, you also got the opportunity to go to school, right? Because we had school right there, and that's part of what I was involved with, education. And I used to bring guests into the jail to speak to the guys and let them see what else was available, what was there they could do. You know, the first day I went in, I said, let me see hands on who's here for the first time. So maybe 100 something guys, maybe 20 of them, 30 of them raised their hands. I said, okay, you guys stay here. The rest of you go someplace else because evidently you like it here. Okay? The one thing you're supposed to learn when you go, if you go to prison, is that you never want to come back again. Okay? Now, those guys that came through the Belief Program in the Richmond City Jail came out drug-free. They formed a group. They asked if they could form a group to mentor the 18-year-olds that were coming in. They started in the jail. They called it Roots, reinventing ourselves outside of the system, right? They started getting out. I started going to court with the individuals and speaking for them. I was the director of the Victims' Rights Foundation then. So the judges got to know me, and they'd call me up and I'd testify, yet this guy has followed the program, he has kept his word, and he has given his word that. And they would let him go. They'd cut their time, you know, with the stipulation, if you come back, you're gonna get that time and whatever else you came back for, okay? You gave your word. Out of those guys, I think there was originally 12 of them and 2 young ladies. They are now the only convicted group that can go back into the jail and mentor prisoners.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And I mean, that makes me feel so great.
That's amazing.
You know, plus I was part of, like I said, the education program. And during that period, we had over 2,400 graduates from the GED program with a marking curve higher than the city of Richmond. Now, my audience has heard me tell this story many times because, as I said, number one, I'm proud of it. Number two, it's nice to let people know that this can happen.
Right.
Okay, that there is something.
And there's got to be hope for people.
Somewhere along the line.
There's got to be.
But what they're doing now with this business, there's a big difference in you going to jail for selling drugs, or you going to jail for possession of drugs, or you going to jail for murder.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Now, you on being on the side that you're on, are you a criminal defense lawyer, or are you?
Well, I am criminal defense, and the way it works is this: I came out of law school. I clerked for a judge for a while. I worked for the Attorney General's office for a while, and then I spent 5 years in the Richmond Commonwealth's Attorney's office. Now, the time I was in the Commonwealth's Attorney's office was that time I described to you earlier, where we were in the throes of the crack cocaine epidemic, and Richmond, as a lot of people will remember, was the murder capital of the South.
Yes,
and there were times where you would walk up and down the halls of the Commonwealth's Attorney's office, and every single prosecutor would have 2 or 3 pending murders that they were working on. And it was a sad time. Now, so that's what I do now. So I now defend people that have been charged with those same offenses. And we are seeing that spike again. We are seeing the murder rate go up again. Mm-hmm. I can't say it's at the epidemic proportions that it was, back then in the 90s. But
it's climbing. It seems like it's getting there, and you saw. I know you knew about it last week or the week before last when the guy went in and shot the 1-year-old baby. Baby sitting in his chair, walked in, and that was his target. It wasn't like it was an accident, that the wild shot or something. He walked in and shot the baby. So.
Oh, it's gruesome. It's gruesome, and I know a lot of people say, well, what's the reason we have bad police, we have bad prosecutors? Neither of those things are true. Mm-hmm. Let me just tell you, I work with the prosecutors' offices in all of Central Virginia, all across the state, actually. And we have fantastic prosecutors. They want nothing more than to give people safe communities. But it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. They've got tough jobs. We've got good police officers that are out there trying to do the right thing and that are investigating these crimes. But it's a tough problem.
You just said something. we have good policemen. Most of the population doesn't have that thought, and I'm talking about our population, blacks, because of what we've seen happen across the United States. And again, I question a lot of those events myself, but when you take the whole and compare it to what these folks are working with, we have a very good police force. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling in.
I have a question for the attorney that's there. He is so vibrant, more so than anybody I've heard for years. Ask him if does he plan on running for office.
That was coming. That was coming up. You got me, caller. You tagged right into my thought line, because I was going to ask him the same thing. When are you going to get up?
I'm going to hang up and let him talk about it.
Okay, thanks for calling.
No, I don't have any plans for that. I mean, I think the politicians do a fantastic job. I love what I do.
That's the key.
And you know, a lot of people, I'll tell you, when I was a prosecutor and I became a defense attorney, people say, well, how can you do that? You're representing the bad guys. And I was like, no, nothing could be further from the truth. I represent people that need help. And I love it. I have a passion for it. I'll tell you, I've represented people that have been accused of some of the most horrible things you can imagine. I mean, from touching children to touching women inappropriately, to doing horrible things, to violent offenses, people that have killed innocent people. And I can tell you with all sincerity, and I mean this to be true, and I'm, like I said, I'm not running for office, so I can be truthful with everybody. In every single one of my clients, I found at least one thing I could like and respect about them. And
Very interesting.
I know my job is to help them. And whether judgment is to be passed on them sometime down the line, whether or not they go above or below, it's not my call.
Right.
My call is to help them in that situation they're in.
Now you hear this, guys, okay? First thing you also need to know is that he's not cheap. Okay? So if any of you look, see, now that's the other problem. Guys like us, and there are more people who sit down and do shows and try to talk about what's happening. The people that they're trying to talk to are not looking.
Yeah.
Now the parents, maybe us, or since you can't do it. Okay, all right, no problem. We're trying to set up the Facebook, but we'll get that set so the next week and the weeks following that, next 4 weeks I should say, we'll have we'll be able to do the Facebook thing. Apologies, but let's keep on going. Now, as a defense attorney, you get to talk to these people on a level that most of the other people don't get to talk to. You get to talk to the real people, not their who they are in front of the police or who they are in front of their buddies or whatnot, because they're scared. Most of them are scared.
Yeah.
So you really do get to know them. What do you think, looking forward, is going to go on, or what do you think needs to happen going forward?
I don't have an answer for that question, and I wish I did.
That's
and
the honest
I'm just
answer.
being honest with you. I mean, it's an interesting thing that you say. I mean, when I go into a jail cell, and sometimes in the middle of the night because their parents have called and retained me and said, we need you to go visit this guy. Sometimes 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, I go visit these guys. And like you said, they're all over the place. Some guys still have that hard shell that they brought in off the street. Some guys are trying to be tough, and some guys never lose that shell. Some guys look me in the eye and break all the way down and say, Mr. Jones, I can't show my family this side of me. I can't show the street this side of me. But you're the only person in this minute that I can trust and talk to. And they break all the way down. And then by the time they get back into court, or by the time they get back out there, they're that same hard shell again. But what I do is, you hear people say you're the attorney, but you also hear people say counselor at law.
Yeah.
And as counsel, I tell them what they need to hear, what they want to hear, and I merge the two. You know, I don't, as an attorney, probably to a fault, I don't sugarcoat things for people.
Okay.
Some attorneys may be of the opinion that the thing you want to do is tell somebody what they need to hear at that time. I don't do it. I tell them what they're going to face when they get into court, and I tell them what they're going to face when they get in front of a judge.
I think that's what's made you so successful and puts you in demand, because people talk. They say, yeah, and this guy really, he really helped and he really cared. I get that a lot,
Yeah.
And, I'll be in the supermarket with my wife and somebody will say, Mr. Coleman, Ma, I want you to meet my mother. You know what a feeling that is to see that it really did work.
Yeah.
You know, it really did work. And
well, I'll tell you, I tell people this story. People always ask, as I said a minute ago, how can you represent this guy? Probably about 4 years ago, I was one of the attorneys who had a big motorcycle gang case that came through the city, in the federal court.
I remember that. Yeah.
And there were a lot of fantastic lawyers on both sides, the prosecutors and defense attorneys. My guy was a person who, when the feds walked in, they seized his stuff. He had all sorts of Nazi propaganda, SS propaganda, things like that. Hateful, disgusting stuff. But he sat across from me, looked me in the eye, and said, "Mr. Jones, I wasn't guilty of it." Well, long and short story, he ended up his case was dismissed. He wrote me a thank you letter that he just kind of scrawled down on the back of a card. And I'll tell you, out of all the cases I've been doing for 20 years, that is the thank you letter that's underneath the glass on my desk. And I look at it when I go to work because I'm thinking, here's a guy who, if he'd seen me on the street before we were on the outside, maybe he would have attacked me. Who knows? But my job was to defend him. I did a good job, and he wrote me a sincere thank you letter from him and his family, and it meant something to me because I did my job. I do my job without passion or prejudice. I go in there and I try to help these folks.
What a statement! I mean, that what you just said. I do my job without passion or prejudice. Wouldn't it be great if we had more attorneys that thought like that?
We do. I mean, I don't want anybody to say, well, I like that Vaughn Jones guy. He's the only good lawyer in the city of Richmond.
No,
it isn't true. There's a lot of there
guys.
are. And my colleagues, I bet if you asked a lot of the people that do what I do, their favorite story or the story that they go back to would be something like what I just said, where it's the guy who probably didn't finish paying him, or the guy who they ended up doing for free or something like that is the one that they remember most. Because if you're in this thing for the money, it's going to show, and you're not going to be able to defend people. You're not going to be able to go in there and stand up against the entire weight of the United States Attorney's Office or these local Commonwealth's office. You're not going to have the guts for it if you're only doing it for the green.
That's basically true of any profession.
Sure.
That you are into because you love it.
Right. Okay. I mean, if you ask a doctor or a lawyer and he said his favorite client or patient was the guy who paid him the most, run as far away from that guy as you can.
You're absolutely right. It's funny you said that because, like I said, I've been dealing with doctors for the last 50 years, really. And the head of chronic pain at McGuire studied martial arts in Japan. And when you go into his office, it's like you're going into a Zen den. I mean, he's got the candles are going and things on the wall. And he has become not only my doctor, but my friend, Dr. Drake. I'll tell his name. Dr. Drake, hello. But at any rate, everybody used to get on me because I would always have Joe on. That's my buddy.
Joe.
Crazy. Lawyer.
Norris,
yeah, Joe. But now, I've been doing this for about 8 years now.
Okay.
So I've had Joe on Joe used to just come on. He'd come in and come on. Now, when all of his troubles started and whatnot, I said, they're not looking at this right. Okay? I know Joe. I mean, I can't say I'm his best friend, but I do know him well enough to know that he would not do anything untold. That's just not him. He's a mover, he's a shaker, he's all those kind of things, but he's basically a good guy. And now, he's happy. He's got kids and the whole bit and running around and still practicing. Was going to run for governor.
Well, I'm not going to comment on
you
that
can't.
any more to say that I've tried a couple of cases with him. I've worked with him, and he and I have had a great relationship in the cases I've had with him. So that's all I can say is what I know about him.
Then that's all you should
and
say.
not comment on anything else that's out there.
Well, I had him come into the jail to talk to the guys. And when we walked on the cell block, the guys started cheering. I said, hey, Joe. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I'm going to do that. But now, back to you. What do you see happening now, coming up? Do you see any kind of, or do you have any kind of suggestions maybe for the authorities even?
Well, here's one of the things I can tell you that is happening. Specifically with some of the federal prosecutions now, a lot of people would presume that the sitting president of the United States is so far removed from the average federal prosecutor that he could not possibly affect him. And I don't think that's accurate. When you've got an attorney general who has given specific directives to his prosecutors that they have to go forward on every provable case and that they have to enforce the sentencing guidelines in a federal prosecution a certain way, those prosecutors follow that. Not because they're bad people, but it's because that's their job.
The job.
And so our present political situation is absolutely affecting some of the way some of these prosecutions are going, without a doubt. And it's removing, in some instances, in my opinion, it's a humble opinion, it's removing some of the discretion away from some of the prosecutors and telling them to go forward on everything they can prove instead of everything they should prove. And there's a big difference there.
Big difference,
A big difference there.
It's scary.
Very, because we can remember, I know you and I can remember, and maybe some of these other folks can't, but we remember a time when there was nothing to be said of these mandatory sentencing guidelines putting people of color away for life offenses, for innocuous drug offenses. And I don't know that I know that those times are coming back, but I saw when those times were in full swing, and I see some scary similarities to what's going on now.
Yeah, and the thing is, they're building more jails instead of more schools. And what do they expect to happen? It's almost like there's a channel with this. I mean, the jail thing is a corporate thing now. It's a money-making thing. So naturally, you need to feed it.
Right, and you start to think, when you mentioned some of those people who are in jail with some of these addictions, what in the world do you accomplish by putting someone who's got an addiction in jail for 5 years? And you say, well, if you mess up, you'll get more time the next time. This person has an addiction and a sickness. And if you don't give them the tools to combat that, either inside the jail or somewhere else, they're going to come back.
That's without a doubt. Without a doubt. They go right back out, get with the same people. That was my mantra when I talked to the guys. You cannot go back and hang with the same people. First thing you have to do is create a new circle. And that was the same. If you're the smartest one in your group, then you're in the wrong group.
Exactly right.
And most of these guys are very intelligent. Like I just said, the marking curve was higher than the city of Richmond.
You know, that's one of the things that I learned. I'm from a middle class family. My parents are professionals. My father's a dentist.
And then you married a dentist.
And married a dentist.
Howard. Okay.
But what I learned is, if you are a person who thinks that because you went to law school or dental school or something, that you're smarter than some guy you meet off the street, you are a fool. Because I can tell you some of the smartest people I've met in my life were not necessarily lawyers. They were some of my clients. And I keep saying, well, but for the grace of God go I, because this guy could have been a lawyer. He could have been a judge. But because he grew up in a certain way, he wasn't exposed to the same things I might have been exposed to, he's just living this kind of lifestyle. Now, I can't give him the guidance to go on and be successful, but I can certainly recognize and see that spark in him.
Guys ran corporations on street corners.
Exactly right.
And made millions
and
of dollars.
didn't have the advantage of putting all their data in a computer because they couldn't.
They couldn't do it.
And
right.
so if you have a guy who can memorize 50 different contacts that he has and what those contacts owe him without the luxury, for intelligence reasons, to put it into a computer or write it down,
that's amazing.
You're thinking, this guy's a genius.
Yeah.
And to have avoided criminal prosecution for a long period of time, these are smart people.
Smart people.
You just wish they could have redirected it.
Let's put the phone number up, guys, okay? Let's get some of these folks to call in who have some answers that they want, okay? I can tell you, it's 804-915-5. Oh, there they go. They put it up. Good work. Teamwork. Say what? Oh, yeah, your number. We need to put your number. Let them know your number. What is
I think they want you to. What is your? Well, my number is 804-788-8880. So if anybody needs criminal representation, they're certainly welcome to call.
That's an easy number to remember. And ours right here, 804-915-5202. Okay? Tell me your number again.
804-788-8880.
Okay. The phone lines are open, so if you have any legal questions you want to talk about, give us a call. If you have anything at all you want to discuss based on the conversation that you're hearing up here, which I think is a very good conversation, give us a call. That's what we're here for. If you have an issue right now that Vaughn might be able to help you with, it'll be free for right now. Give him a call, okay? Give us a call. That's it. Now, what are your plans for the future? Your office is growing.
Well, it is. I mean, I'm by myself. I do have people who rent within the office. I'm not planning at this point to bring on any associates or anything like that or grow the office in that regard. So just moving forward, continuing to help people, and continue to do what I do.
And you love it. I mean, this is why I asked you to be on the show.
I do. I do. I have a passion for it, and I thought maybe after doing any job for 20 years, you get tired. You start to see the same patterns go over and over, and you think maybe I'll just start being a paint by numbers guy. But I can't do it. I can't do it because every person that comes in, he doesn't care how many cases I tried before. He's got the most important case
right.
in the world.
That's it.
It stays new to me.
Well, we do travel quite a bit, Charlie and I, and get to meet people all over the world. And you go into different countries like we go into, and it's kind of awesome to be in a country where there's no crime. Okay, if you go into South Africa, we were in South Africa for 2 weeks, and when we came home, we were looking at ABC News, and they were talking about Johannesburg, the worst, most dangerous city in the world. And with the segregation, and the president, and apartheid and all that was over there. And I called them up. I said, you're not telling the truth. We just spent 2 weeks, Johannesburg, Cape Town. We didn't go to Durban that time. But I didn't even hear anybody curse. Now, I'm not saying they didn't have any incidents, but they just came through that whole apartheid situation, and the whole Mandela said, we will forgive and go forward. Everybody's trying to get along. Now, naturally, you might have a little person over here who's ignorant and still trying to stay the same way. But there's no doors to lock. When you go up to the homelands, into the villages and stuff like that, they don't have locks. In fact, they have native housing and whatnot. I said, I guess I better take my camera. Our driving guide said, nobody would bother it.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying that's all Africa. Okay, there's certain parts of Africa where if you walk in with a piece of gold, I guess that's every country. But with that country being so massive, as big, 7 times the size of the United States, you'd expect to hear more. Now, we heard more with this incident this week with some of my guys, the Special Forces guys, and what happened. And they're saying today that the villagers are the ones that set them up, to turn them in. If the villagers did that, they did it so that they would get some benefit back from those troops.
Right.
Because it might help the village out. They're not thinking about, we're killing people who are trying to help us. They're trying to stay alive, see? Now, it's almost the same mentality you have here. These kids are moving. You go into these housing projects, and that is the same all over the United States. That, to me, was one of the biggest mistakes that the government ever made, housing people in these dormitory prison, almost like housing situations. Everyone that you hear about, there's a problem. All right, now they're getting there. This one they're supposed to be closing. I can't think of all the names now. You guys forgive me. I had brain surgery. That's my excuse. But they're trying to close one and move the people to regentrification, move them someplace else. So you're just moving the problem someplace else. Why not help these folks? And the first thing they need to do, from my perspective, the first thing they need to do is build more schools instead of more jails. And the second thing they need to do is make sure that in these schools, they are teaching. Now, we're very fortunate. Our grandson goes to, I think, one of the best elementary schools that you could find anywhere, and that's Holton, right here. Our biggest concern now is where we're going to send them next. Because as soon as they step into the 5th and 6th grade, that's when the personalities start taking shape, and they start leaning this way or leaning that way. That perfect youngster that you have can turn because of peer pressure. That's why we had the big bullying campaign, to stop bullying. And now we're doing self-defense. In fact, we'll be doing some self-defense on the show here next week because there's so much going on. These young girls are letting these guys beat them up because they think they're supposed to. You listen to the rap records, a lot of them are talking about, that's man, and I bang my and all of this kind of stuff. And these girls, they think it's the way it's supposed to be. I have 4 granddaughters. Guess what? let somebody hit him. Okay? But anyhow, do you have any other things you'd like to add into this conversation? Because you seem like you have a lot to say.
I do. I mean, I want to speak as an attorney, not just a father, but as a father, I hear those concerns, and I do have them, and I really fear for, any parent or any grandparent or anybody fears for their child as they start to push them out of the nest. And you start to say at some stage, you've got to expose yourself more to the world. You don't want your children their first experience with the world to be when they're in college. You want them to gradually get some of those life experiences, so they're not getting it all at once. But it's a scary thing.
But
it is.
See, Jack and Jill is one of the best situations for a boy or girl that we have going.
Oh yeah.
But the events they set up, the concentration that they put into planning for the kids. I mean, how do you sit down and plan something that 50 kids are going to enjoy?
Well, I don't envy the people that do plan it. I really benefit more from it than I plan it.
But it's great.
But I'm a product of Jack and Jill, and my contemporaries.
So was I do you
and so my contemporaries now are these amazing people, and people say, well, how do you know all of these folks? How do you know all these doctors and other attorneys and other people that are doing these amazing things? And when I was little, I just remember playing with them, and they just ended up being these fantastic people that do all these wonderful things. And now I know them because of Jack and Jill. And so I hope, well, I wouldn't say I hope. I would say I expect, based upon who I know these folks' parents are, who these kids that my children are contemporaries with, they're going to have the same thing. And that's what I needed to have for my kids.
That's what I love about Richmond. You don't see it that much in New York, but I mean, you talk, like my wife is best friends with the people she went to grade school with, and their parents were friends, and their grandparents were friends.
See, here's where I'm different than you, and I'm a Richmonder, and you're from all over, and Richmond can be an insular place, and you do have to kind of nudge your way in.
Yeah, oh yes, yeah, this black aristocracy.
Right. But I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for it because it certainly gives me an in into many conversations that it's easy to get into because I'm from here. I know a lot of the people from here. And so I didn't have to nudge my way in. And it's been great growing up here.
Well, I've been here 20 years, and I have to tell you that I have enjoyed these 20 years, probably the best 20 years of my life. Yeah, because my life changed when I came down here, and changed for the better.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I got a chance to really be me and be involved in things that I'm very good at, okay, which is, some most people don't get that chance to do something that you really enjoy doing and you do well, and that benefits the general public also. So going around, talking at the different churches and talking to the other groups and whatnot, I do a lot of veterans talks, but dealing with the young people, the inmates, and that kind of thing, that's where I get my satisfaction. So, I used to walk down the hall in the jail and see all the lawyers on the sides there, and they do like this. The guys would do like this, like, keep it up, hey, thanks a lot, keep it up, and that's a good feeling.
Well, there are days when from one perspective, you might have, well, if you're in the criminal justice system, you're dealing with the bad parts of society. That's what crime is. Crime is the bad parts. But it's also the real world. And I can't tell you how many people of accomplishment I've either helped them out or helped a family member out. The real world is that people do sometimes get in a bad situation and they need help.
Most of us have had some type of bad situation. We don't tell everybody about it because, hey, what are they going to think of me? But
one of the things that I pride myself on is not a name dropper, and so I know exactly what you're saying. And I run into people where, I know something bad that's occurred in their life or their family member's life, and they're thinking, well, is this guy going to tell all my friends? And the answer is no. And attorney-client privilege doesn't mean that when you and I get offset, I say, well, that person over there, I represented his cousin. No. What attorney-client privilege means, and what it means to me is, if you come to me and you call me in the middle of the night and you've got a bad story, it stays with me. And it doesn't go on. Your friends don't know about it. In some cases, your spouse doesn't know about it. But I'm going to look out for you.
Well, see, Here I go again. I'm certified. I'm a counselor, so it's the same
You
thing.
know it.
Yeah, you get the confidentiality is in there, and that means a lot to the person that you're talking to.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I've heard different inmates say to other inmates, "You need to talk to Mr. Coleman, because one thing, if he says it's so and so, he will do it." And to me, that's the apex of professionalism. When someone else is blowing your horn
Right.
and telling you, you know. So I joined the church. In fact, it was my 3-year anniversary last 2 weeks ago. And it's kind of made me a lot more comfortable, because I can see that there is hope because there's so many young people that
That's
are coming
great.
in now.
That's
okay?
great.
And you're invited to come over anytime.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's great.
We have a big thing going this Saturday, you know, with the hay rides and all of that kind of stuff. You want to bring the kids out, bring them on out.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
That'd be
Well,
fantastic.
We're getting ready to wind down on this. I do have a surprise guest I'm bringing on. I want to bring her on for a few minutes. Do you have something you'd like to say in closing?
No, nothing. I just thank you for having me on. I mean,
I'd like to have you on again. I'll be doing,
Yeah.
they give me 6 weeks, like every 6 months or something. When I
Okay.
do my next run, I'd like to have you come back on, and we can talk about what's changed in that period of time.
Sure,
Because
sure.
with the elections that are coming, with the craziness that's going on, in another 6 months, we should have some kind of direction on what the hell is going on, really. I don't even know if that statement made sense, because we don't know. This is something brand new.
well, there's certainly, if you watch CNN, you're watching things that have never happened before on a daily basis.
And I get a kick out of the newscasters. I mean, they're like, you know, what's going on is right.
You know, the one thing I'd say about that, and I try to stay away from being too political, but the one thing I'd say is I do hope people stay vigilant in that regard. And what I mean by that is I hope people don't stop being shocked and offended at what we see. Because the minute you start accepting some of this behavior for normal, it means that not just these folks, but it means the next group of people are going to do it, and it's going to be okay. And so I see some people, oh, I'm not surprised anymore. And that's giving up. Stay surprised, stay upset, stay offended, and don't start taking it, because we can very easily be back to where we were 40 or 50 years ago.
You know, people forget that they have to sign that voters' right registration, you know, to allow us to vote.
Exactly.
You know, I thought it was a law already. No, it's got to be renewed every so and so. Now, what happens with a president that's in there that might not sign that? Then what do we do?
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Scary times, folks. Scary times.
Very scary.
Okay. Well, we're gonna change up and bring up our next guest. I want you to keep doing what you're doing as well as you're doing it,
Thank
and
you.
if not better.
Thank you.
Okay. And we'd like to have you come back again.
Sure.
And once we get done with the show, I'll tell you about next Saturday. You bring the kids out and let them all play.
That sounds great.
Okay.
All right, man. Thank you for having me. I
All right.
appreciate it.
And we'll see you. Folks, once again, Vaughn Jones, attorney at law. Give me your phone number again.
804-788-8880.
Okay, good deal. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
man.
very much. So what we're going to do, I have my special guest that I bring on every time I have a run like this. I have to let the folks see what's going on in our world. So I'm going to ask her to come up in a few minutes. I guess she's back there saying, no, I don't want to come up. But she'll be up, and we'll find out. That was very good. I enjoyed talking with Vaughn. I had spoken to him a week or so ago and asked him if he would come, and he was very gracious in saying yes, and we do appreciate it. Haven't had a phone call yet. What's going on? Nobody want to talk to me today? Huh? Is everybody so smart that they don't need to hear from Conversations with Ed? Give us a phone call. All right. Now, there's some other things happening. We talked about the criminal world. Now we're going to talk about the social world and the party world and the fun world. Because here I'm bringing up this lady who is a partner, a lover. She's my wife for 20 years almost, and we are business partners. So, with that being said, let's say hi to Charlene, Miss Mona from Tropical Beat TV.
Hi everyone, how are you? I was in the back doing, actually I was doing the Facebook camera. And I forgot to comb out my hair, but that's okay.
Whoa, ho. What happened? Something's not right. Caller, can you hear me? Hello? Caller, can you hear me?
Yeah, call back.
If you're watching, call back. Okay, that phone call didn't go through right. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. You see how much I love you? I stood up and did a little bit of
I
camera.
knew that before we came in here. So-
That's why you invited me. That's why you invited me. Next week they'll have it straight. But we've got big things going on for Tropical Beat right now. I think that's why I'm here.
Yep.
You're going to be able to see it. What are we doing? We're doing 13 shows, the best of Tropical Beat. And the first one's going to pop off with footage that nobody's ever seen before. Mm-hmm. And some of the live acts with Gregory Isaacs and Shaba and Patra and Dennis Brown and Ken Booth and John Holt and Tommy Cowan.
It's a reggae time.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. You almost embarrassed me last week talking about our potential sponsors out in California, but anyway, they had to fire, so they're not going to be.
Yeah, that's a shame. I was looking forward to that.
Well, anyway, I wasn't. Except maybe the money, but
yeah, right. That's the whole deal.
It's going to be very, very nice, I believe, and I'm looking forward. I've got some younger people putting it together. When they realized I had all this old footage, they said, "You got to be crazy," because we have all kinds of a market for it. We're going to do that, and I'm going to be releasing, I was calling my new book Dancing to a Tropical Beat because that was the ambience of it, but it's going to be called The Legend of the Tropical Beat. Mm-hmm. And it probably will be more than one volume because we've done so much. So we're going to start off where Tropical Beat started off in Jamaica when I first went there in 1968. And was told to stay away from those guys with all that crazy hair. Mm. They were the Rastas, and of course that's the first place I went. I said, "Where do they live?" He said, "Trenchtown." So how do you get there? You know,
Trenchtown Rock.
And I had a big afro, and I remember the concert. Bob Marley had a little bitty one, and he was looking at me like, "Who is this?" He thought I was Angela Davis or something. And it's just phenomenal, all that we've done, and it's going to be fun.
Be fun for us and fun for everybody looking at it, you know. Just look at all these trips. My man Tom Joyner's got a nice trip getting ready to get going. Basin's got one to get going. But we're going to go and bring it back to you so you can sit in your house comfortably and look or dance to the Tropical Beat.
That'll be fun.
Yeah,
that will be fun.
Yeah. Well, this has been a real nice evening, and I'm sorry we didn't get the Facebook thing set up perfectly, but the guys are working at it. Those of you who stayed tuned are looking at us. It'll be better next week. Trust us on that. And speaking of next week, I'm going to, as I said a little earlier, there's so much of this bullying and stuff going on. You know that I'm involved with the martial arts, and we're going to have some young ladies come on and just show one or two things that they can do for self-defense.
But you know, we have a president that's a bully.
Oh yeah,
and I've heard kids say that maybe a cafeteria lady's a bully, or a counselor's a bully, or the Spanish teacher's a bully. Mm. How do they deal with that? Because you can't use martial arts with them.
No, when you tell your parents, that's all. And your parents go up and they discuss it with the teacher and with the principal, if you have them in that kind of school. Okay, the school is very important.
They are everywhere.
Now, we teach for bullying, actual student-on-student bullying. The first thing that the child being bullied says is, "Leave me alone." That's the first thing they learn, is "leave me alone." Mm-hmm. The second thing they say is, "Leave me alone. Teacher, leave me alone."
So when you grab their hands and you go.
No, that's a punch. And it goes right in the sides. And it will make somebody bend over. And if they have any sense, they will leave you alone. By the same token, that child that did that is not going to be put in trouble for fighting because there's zero tolerance. But there is no zero tolerance for self-defense. Okay, and that is self-defense.
No, some of these schools are crazy. They'll put you out too for defending yourself.
We'll see. Okay, we'll see. So anyhow, with Mona, as she is on Tropical Beats, I have 2 wives, and she has 2 different personalities.
Well, I'm kind of in between right now because
Now this is the author. Now, she didn't mention any of her 6 books that she has out that are going very, very
Oh, and you
well.
can find Mothers to Daughters Cookbook on Facebook now.
Uh-oh.
And Welcome Home Veterans. You can order it. It's Thanksgiving's coming up. So go to my Facebook page. Go to Mothers to Daughters Cookbook. We have a Facebook page now. And then you can order it through PayPal at my CWEC1590 at
And get some
AOL.com.
of those recipes. Thanksgiving's coming up. Nothing like a seafood casserole.
Casserole,
Oh my gosh.
And baked stuffed rockfish.
Oh my
And turkey
gosh.
with oyster dressing.
Oyster stuffing, right?
And macaroni and cheese
Yeah.
and the best greens in town. I've got a whole combination of them there. Then if you eat pork, there's ham. And then we have bread pudding and a real original pound cake.
A real original pound
A
cake.
pound of butter, pound of sugar.
The kind
pound
your
of
grandma used to make. That's right. That's right. Well, we're getting ready to get off. We'll be back again, as I said, next Wednesday. Tell your friends and tune in. We're going to be talking about some pretty interesting subjects. I'll fill you in a little on that as we get closer to the show next week. I'd like to thank the guys on the crew in here today. They have gone above and beyond as usual, but we
Very
thank them.
much.
and real great guys, personality. I've been promising them dinner for almost a year, but we'll get that. We'll get you guys now because you guys are doing a really great job. And we thank you folks who are looking and listening, even though I didn't get a phone call today. Next week we're gonna have that different. If I have to start,
Well, you know
calling
what
people-
happened?
What
A lot of people. I was watching the phone.
Yeah.
A lot of people are watching from other places,
Yeah.
and you didn't tell the number, so they couldn't see the screen from the local people.
Right.
But it's too late to put it up now. So.
Well, we'll make sure that next week that number is very available, and I'll repeat it many times during the next show. Okay? So what we're going to do now, we're going to say good night. We're going to turn on our theme music. Bobby Boyd, my buddy, my partner in music, one of my partners in music.
Frank Abel.
And Frank Abel, that's right, Frank. We're waiting for that tune from you. I want another tune. Bobby Boyd's working on a new album. Might even get those guys to come down here and play it one time. That'd be real good too.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So with all of that, thank you for watching. Please, please, please tell people to turn in with you next week and get your pencils and your pads ready. And thank you.
You know who's coming next week? No.
Kathy.